Hi guys, I go by Neela Norell, and this will be part 1 of 2 to 3 videos, I'll say 3, where I will be discussing egg donation and my journey as an egg donor, so that maybe more females will see that this is something that they can do, because it's a really cool and interesting experience. At least my experience with this was. I don't want to go off on a tangent racing because this experience is like all over the place, but I want to just hit the main topics and discuss what I feel like is most important as far as my journey or whatever. With how the hell did I get into this? You know, I found out about this when I was 19. It was just a thought that I had in my mind in one of my college classes. I felt as though it was related to the topic that we were discussing, but not exactly. So I'm on my class in the computer, not paying attention, and I'm Googling egg donation. Mind you, I was 19, and this is something that you can do between the ages of 21 and 32. And you can do it up to 6 times. So that's the first question that I'll just throw out there, or the answer that I'll throw out there. This is something that you can do 6 times depending on your health and your health habits. It's very important for someone who is looking to do this, having a healthy lifestyle, because you're helping someone have a kid. You gotta be healthy. My first time doing it as far as the application. So once again, I was 19 when I did my research, and I discussed it with my mom. She said, fuck yeah, like she was like, of course, you know, like if this is something that you want to do, absolutely do it. Because my mom was very much the kind of mother who was kind of just like, don't have kids until you're ready, don't have kids until you're ready. And I kind of didn't know if I wanted kids, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna really look into it. So I did my research and I was like, okay, this is definitely something that I can do. Fast forward, I'm 21, I'm ready to do this. I submit my application. Now it was an intense application, like somewhat intense. So they ask you about yourself. Do you smoke? Are you active? How tall are you? How much do you weigh? Do you have any, I think they asked, do you have any genetic conditions like asthma, allergies, stuff like that? I didn't have any, so those were my answers to those questions. And then you submit pictures, a baby picture, a picture with your family, and a picture by yourself, I think against a wall or something, like a headshot. I submitted that. Oh, and of course it asks you for your race. I put it because I know my genetic, I know my racial background a little bit deeper. I identify as African American, I'm black, but on the application I did put that I have a Native American heritage, which I do, and I know those relatives and how they related to me, so I did put that in there. Next questions were about your family, your immediate family, and their health, and if they were alive or if they weren't alive, and if they were passed, and if they passed due to any genetic conditions. So it asked your mother, your father, your brother, if you have any sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your great-grandparents, your grandparents, and how they died, and if it was related to anything that was like genetically passed on. So cancers, I don't know, I think diabetes, stuff like that. And once again, with my family, my grandparents didn't pass due to anything that was genetically related at that time, and so on and so forth. So, hey, those are questions that I answered, and I moved on to the next process. So I submitted that. I received an email for further instructions, and I had to, because at the time I was living in Jersey, and I had to drive to Connecticut to do like a face-to-face interview. Pretty much, I go to the interview, and it's really important because not everyone feels like this is something that they can do emotionally, or something that, like, whether it's religion or just like their own morals or belief, this is something that people feel like they just can't do, for whatever the case may be. So when you go to the interview, they ask you, are you sure you want to do this? Emotionally, how do you feel about this potential child? Do you have a support system? Are you seeing someone? Are you sexually active? You know, at the time I was seeing someone, and it was a new relationship, so I kind of didn't care how they felt about it. I I already had clearance from my mom. She was happy. She was actually there with me. She was like, she supports me fully. So I had a strong support system, and I knew that it was something that I was going to do, and no one was going to try and talk me out of it. And then on top of that, they ask, how would you feel if later down the line, this kid is 18 and you're 40, 30, whatever the case may be, and they want to meet you? And I was like, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because at that point, they're mature enough to understand the science behind it. I didn't carry them. I didn't give them up for adoption. I helped someone I helped give ingredients to someone who was baking something. That's how I saw it. I don't think that I'm cold for thinking this way, but it's science. I felt as though it was a transaction, and I felt as though whoever was going through this process wants to be a parent, and they're going to be a good parent, because it wasn't something that was in my card. I expressed that to them as articulately as I could, and they were like so happy about that, because every situation is different. You're going to have parents who don't want to communicate with you. You're going to have parents who don't mind communicating with you. Most of the time, parents aren't going to want to communicate with you. You're just ingredients, and that child is theirs, and you're not going to be a part of it, which is fine. Like, transaction, who cares? Like, here's my eggs, good luck, congratulations, and you're welcome. That's just how I felt about it, and how I still feel about it. I guess because of how I answered the questions, my health screening, because during that process, you're also doing blood work. I did genetic testing, drug testing. I passed whatever needed to be passed, because I wasn't a smoker, not a smoker. At the time, I was, and I still am very healthy and active as far as working out and stuff. No allergies, no predisposed or pre-existing conditions or anything like that. So I was accepted, and at that point, it was just a waiting game. You're active on the profile, on their website, and someone just has to pick you. It was probably a couple of months that had passed by, and then I got an email saying that someone was interested in my eggs, and I was excited. Now, I am 27 now. I can't really tell you the exact process or what I remember from the first time that I did it, but I will say that I was on birth control. How you take the birth control does something to your hormones or does something to your eggs, and then they monitor it. So you're doing ultrasounds of your uterus and your follicles to make sure that they're all healthy and juicy. Mine were juicy. Injections, they send everything to you, and you have to do it at the exact same time each night. I think because your uterus is like that, so on your stomach, I had to do one shot, I think for 4 nights. And then they told me, and then I think I did another ultrasound, and then they told me, okay, you're ready, this is happening. So just to backtrack a little bit, during this time period, the parent, whatever, he emailed me and, just asked me just a little bit about myself, and I told him. And we were communicating. Like, I think at first he didn't want any communication, and this is something that has nothing to do with my future. It had something to do with me in that moment. So being that this person chose to communicate with me, I was okay with it, okay, cool, like we can have a conversation. So we spoke, and then just fast forwarding again, once I was ready for the eggs to be retrieved, I ended up meeting him. I went to the clinic that day. He was there. We took a picture together. He said that my mom reminds him of people in his family. He was just excited. He's a genuinely such a good person. So we met that day, and the procedure itself is 15 minutes. I was in some stirrups as if I was at the gynecologist's office. They put the anesthesia in my veins for my hand, and once I was in there, they said, just go to your happy place. And I went to my happy place, and when I woke up, they said, it was successful. I think they gave me some water, and they handed me a check. It was literally that easy. That's what I remember. And since I am doing this again, I'm going to document this new process, but that's what I remember from the first process. Why I did it, I would be lying to you if I said that money didn't play a factor. The compensation for egg donation varies from state, but I think the standard is like for your first time, or just in general, between $7,000 and $8,000. The first time I did it, I received $8,000 through the clinic, and I was a college student still, and it helped me. I didn't have student loans. I was paying for, like, my car was in my name, everything I was paying for. My mom was helping me, and I needed the money, you know. $8,000. I paid for, I think, my last 2 semesters of school. I paid my car off. I bought some shoes. I gave my mom some money, and it put me in a better place financially, and I needed that. So that's why I did it, you know. Granted, you know, not to sound full of myself, but I take care of myself enough to know that I'm giving someone a healthy child, and that's also why I did it, you know. I feel like the questions that I'm gonna get is, oh, like, you don't want to have kids? And be honest, I don't know if I want kids. I'm probably leaning towards being the fun, rich auntie that has a successful career, because I just don't have that motherly instinct. So that's another reason why I did it. And then, you know, when he emailed me and told me that the retrieval was successful, like, my heart sank. I was happy. Giving someone what they've always wanted in life, which was to be a parent, is just an amazing feeling, because you know that that child is going to be so loved and so well taken care of. So why would I feel emotionally distraught about that? I was so happy. I think, like, my mood that day was just, like, through the roof. I was, like, dancing around work. I was happy. I was so happy. When he was actually born, you know, it was like, it was just, like, surreal, because I was just like, damn, like, I did that. I really helped someone, you know, like, become a parent, and he's happy, and that kid is so well taken care of, and he is so smart, and he is so active. It's kind of just like, damn, like, you know, you're welcome. Like, it's just a really good feeling to know that you helped someone. And at that point, it was kind of just like, yeah, the money helped me, thank you, but also, like, you know, anyone who wants to be a parent deserves to be a parent, and that's why I don't mind doing it. I'm just ready to continue to help people until I can't anymore, you know. And at least I can say that my genetics didn't go to waste, you know. Like, take it how you want. I helped someone. I probably have, that I know of, or that I can speculate, like maybe 3 or like 2 kids in total out there, other than the first one that I did, because there was a like 2 or a little over a year after me giving my eggs to this first parent. The same company emailed me and told me that someone else was interested in my eggs, but because they were already in their possession, there was no compensation for it, and I kind of didn't care. It wasn't that serious. So, yeah, you know, that is my story. But I do want to end this video by saying that, as a person of color, I assumed a lot of things about this entire process, and I was completely wrong. I spoke to the parent after the fact. He did mention that during his search for an egg donor, it wasn't easy for him to find an African American woman to be his egg donor. I think there was a lot of, like, other races. And this process is not something that you can take lightly, because it's health, and you're putting your money into it, and you're putting someone else's life into it as well. Because there are risks for this. I don't know them right now, but I'll put that in the next video. There are risks to this, and, you know, someone who is making a child, they want that child to look like them. So the fact that he mentioned that there wasn't a lot of people, or any people of color, in the donor system, I was like, wow, like, I had no idea, because I do feel like it's important for me to tell my story as a Black woman, and hopefully other people of color, other women of color, can look at this and say, okay, like, let me do my research. And I'm fully aware that women are people's families who don't want their daughters to do this, or like think about this. It's like religion comes into play, morals comes into play, emotions come into play. So yes, 100%, all of those things come into play, whether it's your own beliefs, whether it's your family beliefs, whether someone is stopping. At the end of the day, I kind of want women to understand that if you're able to have kids, you're so lucky, you know. And not every like women in this world, like, they struggle, and you can say to yourself, like every woman says to herself, when I have a kid, I want my child to look like me. And whether the couple, and sometimes these are heterosexual couples, sometimes they're homosexual couples, sometimes they're just like single people who are ready to have kids, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, these couples and these women and these men that go through this process, they want their kids to look like them. And granted, you know, in my head, I feel like sometimes this is like build a baby for some people, so they pick you based off of, you know, like your looks, or not so much like your health and stuff like that. But for the couples and for the women who want to have that person that looks like them, you know, representation in the Black community, the Spanish community, minorities as a whole, it is important. You know, if you're open to doing this, just do your research, you know, or just apply. You can apply for this and just be sitting active on the profile, and if you feel like it's not for you, you can say no. You know, there are contracts. You don't have to have an emotional connection with this family or with this parent, or you can have an emotional connection with this parent, you know. Like, my case is completely different. The father and me, he texts me like twice a year. I get pictures of the kid, and I'm okay with that. If this kid grows up and says, oh, like, why don't I have a mom? And he wants to meet me, his father is very smart. He'll explain to him the process that happened, and I will have no problem meeting him and explaining to him, like, hey, I was like just answering whatever questions that he has. So once again, the reason why I am documenting this process is because I'm not sure how many people have documented their process as an egg donor. I'm not sure if there's a lot of videos on YouTube where the person who is donating their eggs is a Black woman or is Hispanic or is of color, whatever the case may be. But I think it's important that I tell my story so that, you know, people can be vulnerable, maybe, if that's the right word, and just help families who want to have kids that look like them or that resemble them. And that's so important for people in this process, because it's not easy to find out that you can't have a kid and you have to do outside work just to have a child. And if you're going to do the outside work to have a child, you want the baby to look like you. So that's why I'm doing it, and I guess stay tuned for the next part where I'll show you guys the hormones and the medications that I'm on, and whether or not I'm going to get bloated or hormonal. Well, you'll take that ride with me, and it's, I don't know, hopefully it's fun.